everyone doing?
Awesome.
All right, happy Monday.
Yeah.
Months just flying by, like they always do. Heard the other day, life is like a toilet paper roll. It gets faster as it gets towards the end.
Longer, tougher, the faster it goes.
All right, gratitude, victories.
My Niners won Saturday.
Yeah?
Ooh.
Yeah, going to the NFC Championship.
Nice. No wonder my son was so upbeat.
Yeah.
That's his team.
That's good. All right, anyone else? It was that kind of weekend, huh? Nobody else wanted the Niners, I guess.
What are we
Wow,
grateful
that kind of
for?
put the...
Yeah.
Kansas City.
Kansas City. There's a Kansas City fan right there. All right. So, anyone grateful for anything other than football this weekend? Or is that a football weekend?
Jazz won.
Jazz won. Now we're in basketball.
For the Jazz, baby.
I love it. I love it. John?
And a real nice birthday dinner for my mom on Friday. It was nice.
Nice.
Oh, that's great. That's
Awesome.
great.
Wrote an offer over the weekend, so I'll find out by tomorrow if we get it. And then I received 4 offers on 2 different listings.
That's
over
okay.
the weekend.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
So
Good
negotiating
job.
those today. So.
Nice.
Great. Way to keep it. Anyone else? One more.
Okay, I'll go.
All right, Jude.
So I'm grateful this week. I don't know if all of you know, but I'm here on my own. My husband's still in Las Vegas, so he's here this week. And last night we got to have a family dinner with our daughter,
Nice.
son-in-law, granddaughter, and it's just like, oh, everything's coming together. Besides this, you guys have been great, but having my family here was just
Yeah, that's
made
cool.
it really bring it together.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Oh, that's
So-
awesome. And when are they moving out?
My husband won't be here till May.
May. Okay. It's good.
Jason, I got
Yeah.
a gratitude. So
Uh-huh.
is that Mike here? Is that you, right? Michael? Mike or Michael?
Michael.
I'm so grateful for brand new people who come into role play first thing and are willing to stand in that heat and the fire of actually really putting yourself out there. And he did an incredible job today. I want to thank him publicly for that and standing through that. And just everything that everybody else has done in that role play this morning was really, really a lot of fun. So really grateful when that happened. So it was good.
Yeah,
Good
especially
job.
coming in at 7 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, he did really well.
It
He was
really
looked
great.
scared as heck, but it was good to see what he did.
You,
And
you have that tendency to scare people.
scare people.
Yeah.
Sam, you can come in. It's not going to be me. It's George. George is going to present, so you can come in.
You know, that kind of reminded me of what George said this morning. The Ring of Fire.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
Johnny
Johnny
Cash.
Cash. Yeah.
When he said a Ring of Fire, I thought,
Yep.
yeah.
Well, even Wayne. I mean, Wayne just really stepped it up. So
Yeah.
you guys did really well.
Yeah. Hansie.
Also, I think everyone should know Dylan and I beat my dad and brothers in basketball.
Whoa!
Wait, you and Dylan beat.
Holy
I had back
moly.
surgery.
Bam! Drop
Let's
the
just
mic.
not forget that.
Your doctor cleared you.
That may be true, but I'm still 10.
Just to remind you, he is presenting and you are here.
Oh!
Just ask Jason about that.
Yeah. Don't pick on him right at the moment. Otherwise, he's going to come
I had
at.
like 5 videos this morning, so I'm on fire.
There you go.
Okay, real quick. This week's summit. So tomorrow, 11:30 to 2 at the Larry H. Miller campus. Make sure you're there for that. And that's the only one that's. There's no base camp this week because we have summit. Okay. All right. Mr. Morris.
Great.
You are up.
Hey, everybody knows Judy, right? She's she's VP for the coaching company and for Eversale System stuff, right?
Yes. Yep.
And then so I got like 10 names on my desk, and people keep asking how to sign up for February 4th, 5th, and 6th. So she's also a great resource to figure that out. And I know today that the website, I guess, is going to be launched. And just so you know, I sent that video over to Belladonna.
Okay.
They just wanted one last thing, but it'll actually be a real easy sign up. And so again, just as a reminder, there's also a code, right, that they're going to be able to use so that you get the 145 versus the 195, which everyone else is being charged. So it's going to be interesting. There's people coming kind of from all over, so it should be a really cool environment. And we've got some really great agents, got some great panels, got individual agents. If you're wanting to work, on a team, be part of a team, if we eventually create a team, it's going to be good. So, all right, Michael, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, George. Great.
All right. Okay, so we're going to pick up right where we left off. Does anybody remember where we left off? Why?
Well, let me pull it up on my notes. I know you had just finished the game plan.
I know, which I totally screwed up, but Jason was too afraid to raise his hand and tell me that it was actually the intro versus I said it was the game plan. And I kind of, just so you know, change your notes because I messed that up. All right? And what's your name?
Michael.
Michael, nice to meet you. I'm George. All right. Good morning, Lindsay Wardle. How are you?
Great.
Good. All right. Liz, you loving the snow? Wish you were at the beach in Hawaii?
She just got back from Hawaii.
I know. She was there for a month. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. All right, so we're going to get back to this. So let's start there. But I want to, there was also something I missed last week that I wanted to just visit with you about. And before, I'll put it over here because we'll use this other side primarily for the listing side. But this whole idea of fulfillment is interesting. And I have to tell you, I remember as a young 20-year-old, I can remember a gentleman by the name of Steve Forey. Some of you know him, and some of you will relate to this. He was my former mission president, and I remember when I was in my early 20s, he said something. He said two things. He said a lot of things, but these are the two that were really impactful for me, and I've always carried them with me. One, he'd always talk about one person, one man, one woman can make all the difference in the world. Right, I mean, you see that throughout history. You see that from the tragedies of an Adolf Hitler to the beauty and the absolutely awesomeness of like an Abraham Lincoln or a Martin Luther King or a Gandhi or Mother Teresa, and all these great people that we can look back in history in our current day who are making a difference. But the other thing that he talked about was he would always say this throughout my 20s and probably my early 30s. He would always say, "Hey George, don't chase money." And then he didn't say this part, but I would finish it with, now as years went on, I would say, oh yeah, so what am I supposed to chase? And what I realized is that if I chase the principles of leadership, the money always follows. So part of our success, like I was listening to John Maxwell just a few days ago, and he said, look, it's pretty clear if you're a great leader or not, based on the number of people that follow you. It's not about position. It's not about where you have been put in life. It's simple. He always says, the larger the company, the better the leader. The larger the crowd of people that follow you, the better the leader. So something to consider is how many people really follow you. How many people, are there, in some words, would basically go to the ends of the earth to follow you. Something to really consider as you move through your life, because if you want to move a ton of real estate, right? You want to take on real estate at a whole other level. Well, then it all comes down to who you are as a leader. We can talk all day about lead count. We can talk all day about what the market's doing. We can talk all day about so many different things. But the thing that seems to have the biggest impact is who we become as a leader. And if we want to create high levels of efficiency in whether it be the basic meeting that we sit in, to the basic listing presentation, to anything, it has to do with who we become as a leader. And the great challenge, right, is the great words of T. Harv Eker in his book, The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. And I quote it actually on one of my CDs, and it says this, and it says the most 3 or 4, can't remember if it's 3 or 4, Rick. It's either 3 or 4. Is that 3 words? I know that. All right, I just had to say them first before I knew it was 3 or 4. I do that all the time. I'm like, it's 4 words. I'm like, wait, that was only 3 words. All right, so 3 words, right? I know that. Because the moment or I'm good at that, or I already do that. I'm just telling you that is a dangerous place to be in life. Because the reality is the moment you think you have fully arrived, that you got it figured out, that is the moment your brain shuts off, you're striving to becoming more shuts off. You have got to make sure you recognize that if you really want more out of your life, you have to become more. And no one ever wants to talk about that. They want to dance around it. They want to talk about, I want to talk about real estate. Oh, no, I want to talk about the contracts. Oh, no, I want to talk about, how many leads I'm getting. Oh, I want to talk about the market's doing. Because the hardest thing to focus on is the reality check of who we are. Because, as I've said, if your presence is my mantra for the year, man, if your presence isn't getting you what you want, which is basically if your leadership is not getting you what you want, your words won't either. They won't. They will not make it happen. So who are you being when you show up at a presentation, when you show up in a meeting, when you show up in the hallway with another agent, when you show up in their office, when you show up in a coaching session, when you show up if you're a lender in a in a lending situation? Who are you when you show up? And again, I go back to Maxwell's statements. If you are not capable of leading a large group of people, it is always down to who you are as a leader. It always is. If you are incapable of galvanizing a group of people, it is your leadership. If you are not capable of being able to bring high-level leadership and leaders together and galvanizing them, it is, again, your leadership. So I just want to point out that some of you are maybe scared of a high-end home. It's not the home that you should be scared of. The person who typically owns the high-end home is typically, not every time, is what? A great leader. That's what I've observed. I can remember, hey, the last $1 million property I sold, the guy had a huge business, nationwide, actually, I guess you could say North America, Canada, US, sold his company for millions of dollars, and I'm sitting there, okay, all right, am I going to be a good enough leader? Because I was sitting in front of a great leader with hundreds of employees, offices across North America, and now I come up and I think I'm just going to, schmooze something over and make it happen. Well, the good news is I got it. And it was actually from a buying standpoint. But here's what's interesting. I referred them a number of builders that they should build with. And they didn't choose one of the builders, even though I believe the builder they chose was the worst one they could have chose. They chose that one because they were a better leader in presence. And I still don't think it was the right person they should have built with. Still to this day, I don't think that. So I just want to point out that if you think that, again, it's the cutting of commissions, it's the words that you say, yes, the words you say based on how you say them, the confidence behind them, but just do not underestimate that if you start chasing money, scarcity, like how much I can save. Yes, you can save. You can save some money, but you can't save yourself to success. You can't save enough money to thrive and really, tackle greatness in this, right? Yes? You thinking that? Yeah? All right, just making. Ruby, I'm just making sure she's with me. All right? Okay, so look, fulfillment. I'm all over the place. Why? I'm going to get back to this listening presentation. I got a lot on my mind. I've already been given 10 minutes of video content trying to, it's interesting. I did a 26-minute video on Saturday here, and we were talking about it, and there was a few little things we tweaked in it, but for 26 minutes I sat there and spoke. And I still remember this. I could not even put together a voicemail that was not a stammer, stutter, too long of a pause, I couldn't even say, hi, this is George Morris, please leave your information, and I'll return your call as soon as I can. Impossible to do. Like I could not, and I listen to people's voicemails. There's a friend of mine, I always get hers, and I listen to it. I always think it's funny as I listen to it. I think, man, we got a long pause. Look at this, and I realize, well, she is not the director of communications, so I leave her alone. I'm like, it's good enough. But I think it's funny actually, like how hard it is just to leave a voicemail when we're talking about presentations. So this isn't easy what we all do. Right? I mean, we got to present. And here's what's so silly is that when we make it look easy, Tim, guess what? It means that all the work you've done when no one else was watching, right? I think Tony Robbins says something like, Lynn's probably correct me on this, but basically those who are, glorified, if you would say, out in the open public for what they've done, it was, so many words, it was what they did behind the scenes that got them there, right? It was the late nights, it was writing the scripts, it was staying and creating and building and growing when no one else was watching. So just look, I'm just telling you that even as cool as this, I believe, meeting is, the morning Ascent, this is just a little piece of what you may need to do to get where you need to get to. Maybe it's 2 or 3 hours of this a day. I remember practicing scripts for a minimum of 2 hours a day for several years. When I built my team 10 years ago, hour and a half every day. So I just want to remind you that this meeting, although it is great, it may not even be enough because of what's required. And Rick, some of your gaps are as wide as this room. Some of the gaps you're trying to fill in your business are this small. But either way, you can fill the gap. It doesn't matter how wide the gap is to your success. It just matters whether you ever give in, give up, and you don't strive to figure it out. So figure it out, John. Right?
Right.
All right. Here we go. What is fulfillment? Pardon? Accomplishment. Okay. We get fulfilled when we accomplish something, right? But how do we feel fulfilled, right? There's the right, we can achieve everything, right? Accomplishment, but still feel unfulfilled, which is often a great tragedy, right?
So there are three things: growth, contribution, and integrity.
Okay. You're right. I always talk about that as what builds the greatest level of confidence, right?
Right.
Which certainly that helps in fulfillment. But let's just go to the first two that you just said, right? So look, in simple terms, if we want to create fulfillment, growth, and then I always say up here, what is fulfillment? And that is that, let's just talk about this peace, right? I'm going to put here the mind. But what I'm really saying again is that your peace of mind. But the second component is this emotion called happiness, right? Now you can mentally be happy, but I've over the years divided this up and said, look, happiness is this emotion. It's the I'm gonna put a little heart up here. It's the heart and the soul of who you are, right? So if you start looking at that, you start sitting there saying, okay, wait a second. Am I fulfilled? Do I have a peace of mind within myself? Do I have an emotion of happiness and joy in my life? You know, is my heart full? Right? Is my mind full of peace? I just want to challenge you that that's a really important part of this. So when we talk about this morning meeting, we talk about writing in our journal. We talk about our gratitudes. We talk about what we really want. Just remember, what we're really trying to do here is to create some level of fulfillment. So that, to John's point, that how do we get that? Is that we contribute. And I've always said this for years. I'm not going to spend much more time on this, but I just want to make sure you recognize that if you're unfulfilled, it is almost always because you are not growing. And look, I heard it from Jim Rohn just on a thing today. I hear it from Tony Robbins. I hear it cloaked, disguised, and spoken as similar as many other people will talk about. But in simple terms, growth equals happiness. Just remember that. If you aren't growing, I don't care how hard the growth is, it will not be possible for happiness. Growth equals happiness. And sometimes it feels like you're growing way too much. Like too much is coming at you. You're trying to conquer too much. You're trying to overcome too much. You're trying to work through too much. And all that growth that occurs for you, though, in the end of the day will bring you tremendous happiness. And the other part is that you can take all your growth, which is what I love in this business. You can take all that growth and then contribute to yourself, to others, to those you love, to your most sacred relationships, of course, to clients, to sellers, to buyers, to the staff, to the people who help get deals done. Man, what if you take all that growth that you acquire within yourself and you give to others? I am telling you, fulfillment will fill your soul. It is a guarantee. Do not underestimate it. So whenever you feel empty, whenever you feel fearful, I can promise you it comes down to this growth and this contribution. Look, religion has this figured out. You know that. They want you to grow. It doesn't matter what religion you're in. It doesn't matter where you come from. And then you're like, hey, go serve. Serve. Love one another. Pretty simple. And somehow we forget that that's the key to fulfillment. So if you're unhappy, depressed, anxious, sad, can't get it out of your own way, just come back here and say, man, am I really growing? Am I really giving and contributing to one another? And if you're not doing that, this is not going to happen. And you can look at all the other ways to try to fulfill yourself with drugs, alcohol, crazy living, and try to ignore the peace of mind you're looking for and the happiness. But I promise you, if you cannot find a place in your life to grow, well, you wouldn't be here if you didn't want to grow, but you got to contribute, whether that be in business. And that's why I always talk about this hierarchy. And that hierarchy is number 1, to your point, by the way, John, and that is integrity. Number 2, the people. And number 3, the money. If you can make something like that become your value system, I can promise you life will be a lot better. When this gets screwed up, or this gets screwed up, this all gets messed up, people become really lame. I mean, they're the people you don't want to be around. You may say, "Oh, but look at all the wealth they have." Well, that's great. In fact, I don't post a lot on social media, but I was sent something from, actually it was sent to me from Tina Hare yesterday, and it was something I reposted on my Instagram, or I think it even went on Facebook, and I posted there, and it was all about the fact of really, what is success? Is it that you achieved everything, you accomplished everything, or was it that when you turned back around and you were climbing the mountain, you helped other people become great? My observation is that is all that this is about how you become truly fulfilled. Make sense? Any thoughts, comments, please? Yes.
Just a thought on this one, because sometimes we are focused on one or the other, growth and contribution. I see it a lot I saw it in my spouse, but spouses that aren't in this environment who are contributing at a high level, but then at some point they're just not feeling fulfilled. And it's, for my wife, I had to go into this growth side and said, I need to help you to have opportunities to grow, because you're contributing at a high level, but you're not feeling fulfilled because you're not doing the growth part of it. But she's giving everything that she can give.
Right.
And she's, not happy with it. And it's because she's not linking the two. And it's the same thing with us. We could be in this growth, and never contribute and wonder why we're not being fulfilled. You got to have both of them together in order to have that piece that happen.
Yeah, perfect. I love it.
There's a lot of great components here. I was formerly with a company a long time ago that it was all about learning and growing, making money, having fun, and contributing. And then after you've done those things for yourself, then you enable others to do the same.
Yeah.
Enabling others, gets you. After you focused on yourself and you've achieved all that, sometimes there's a little bit of a void there. If you're helping others do the same, then you have a better understanding and feeling of the whole.
Yeah, but you're more fulfilled, right? You have a better peace of mind. You have more happiness. You feel more joy. You feel more fulfilled. It's a really, from a standpoint of simplicity, it's pretty simple. Grow, give, grow, contribute, become more, give more. Oh, I'll be fulfilled if I do that. So again, I know many of you in here do a lot of that. But I just want to remind you that, man, if you're feeling unfulfilled and empty, sometimes, again, to your point, Jason, is that there's people who will just give. And then, it's like in the airplane, right? They're only putting oxygen masks when they drop in the plane, right? They're only putting the oxygen mask on others. Well, look, that whole thing about growth is you have to have, but then the tragedy is when someone's like, grow, me, chase money, me. And they have no interest in this. And most of us get really turned off with people like that. You feel their selfishness, and we're all selfish, but it's a whole different level of selfishness. Whole different level. So just something to think about your hierarchy, how you move through your life. Okay, so we talked about that intro. Let's just write it up. I'm going to write it up here just really quick. There was these 4 things. I put the 4th, but just as a quick reminder, those of you who weren't here, I'm just for time, a thank you, right? Some way in which we acknowledge someone. Then we're going to give some level of a promise, and then we're going to give some level of a commitment. In a nutshell, that's the intro, right? Hey, I want to thank you for allowing me to be here. I want to acknowledge you for your time. Hey, I promise you we're going to do some great things together, and I want you to know how committed I am to helping you get what you want. It can be that simple. That easy, that simple, no big deal. Okay? But let's spend our time. Any questions? Actually, before I jump, any questions to that? I know we talked about it, was it Friday? I don't know if it was Thursday or Friday, whatever day it was. Please.
I don't know why, but it's like biting at me, so I'm going to just say it.
Please.
So on this, I did, again, going back to growth and contribution, For me, a long time, I thought that, and I had this conversation with an agent up in Centerville last week, is I think oftentimes we always think contribution has to be to other people too. And I think if you don't have both of those for yourself first, you can't do those at a high level for other people.
Yeah.
So don't forget that contribution doesn't mean that you can't get back to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. You have
Self-care,
to.
self-love, everything. And when you can do that to yourself at a high level, your contribution and your growth is 10 times more certain to other people first.
Yeah, I like that. That's great. Okay, so with that, now let's write about the game plan. And I messed that up. I apologize. I had the wrong. I should have practiced my script, Jason. Right?
Sounded good. You were confident.
That's right. Dripping with confidence. Right? All right. Number one. Does anybody remember what number one is? Kenzie, do you remember what number one is? No? All right. Well, there we go. Anybody?
Needs.
All right. Right. Remember game plan, right? I've said this, right? I show up at the front door in my car. I yell at one of you. I say, hey, get in the car. First thing you're going to say, Joanna, is what? Hey, where are we going? That's all I'm saying. Just tell them where you're going. Let them know, right? Okay, so needs, wants, and expectations. My observation, I'm just going to underline that one, is that itself is what really sets. In fact, I had a great conversation this weekend with Judy and with Alma Merrill, and we were talking about the fact of how scripts, dialogues come together. And I thought it was interesting because this is a really important thing to me. And we'll get into this when we start talking about questions that we're going to ask. But my observation is that we will get into a situation where we will ambush a client with lots of information or lots of scripting, lots of words, and we never really find out what it is that they expect. And my observation is that majority of what you say next to anybody, if you know what their expectations are, it helps you understand what you need to do or say next. So man, that's a big one from a standpoint of expectations. And of course, we want to know what they want, right? Maybe the pie in the sky, maybe the, hey, I want this, but I don't know if I can get it. But then, of course, what do I really need? What do I need to have happen? That's, I'll put a little heart here. What I mean by that is just your heart and your soul, man. Usually it's like, man, I really need this. It's like you can feel all the emotion around what people need when they're coming from that space. Make sense?
Yes.
Any thoughts to that, Jason? Am I on track?
You're on track.
Okay, just check it. All right, number two. So, now look, I don't care whether we're talking about a buyer or seller. I don't know if it's much different from the buyer or seller when you're wanting to know what they need and what they want and what they expect. I think it's about the same, right? If I was to replace a number two, if I'm working with a buyer, it would just be simply, hey, we're going to help you find the right home. But number two, in this scenario, is really talking about the plan of action, right? What are we going to do to get the home sold? My observation is the majority of the presentation is up in this. The plan of action could be as simple as, hey, Jason, I work with Century 21. It's synonymous with real estate. Any questions in regards to what I'm going to do to help you get your home sold? Well, no. Okay, great. I mean, truly, guys, it can often be that simple. I'm not suggesting that in this plan of action that you need to go through every single thing. And if it's a buyer, if we're working from a buyer standpoint, right, it would just be to find the home, right? That's where we would focus on that. Look, I want to know your needs, wants, expectations, and then I'm going to help you find the home. We're going to talk about the home. We're going to get down to the nitty gritty of that home, right? And we're going to do what we need to do. Okay, any thoughts to that? Anything? We'll get into what that means, but again, we're talking to them about where we're going. Hey, I want to know more about your needs, your wants, expectations. I know, Michael, I asked you a ton of questions over the phone, but gosh, I need to know just a little bit more to make sure we're on the right page. Fair enough? Sure. Great. And then we're going to talk about this plan of action. We're going to talk about what we need to do to get the home sold. Okay, what's number three?
Price.
Pardon?
Price is under something.
All right. The price. And I always talk about three different areas of the price. So what are areas you think that you might want to tell them you're going to talk about? Let's give the obvious. That's the last one. I'm just going to put the obvious up here. CMA, now what?
Market conditions.
Yeah, market conditions, right? So what's the market actually doing? That might be, I might bring a spreadsheet or whatnot, and then what else? What's the middle one? Starts with an S, T,
Strategy.
right? Our strategy, like how we're going to price it. So look, if I'm sitting there, it's like, hey, let me tell you a little bit about where we're going. Kind of the blueprint of today, the game plan. Hey, I want to talk to you a little more about your needs, your wants, your expectations, really what you're trying to accomplish ultimately in the sale of your home. We're going to talk about the plan of action, how we're going to get your home sold for top dollar in the shortest amount of time. And number 3, I want to talk to you just a little bit about the price. But before we talk about the actual price, we're going to talk about, 1, the conditions within the market, the strategy in which we use to sell 5,000 plus homes across the Wasatch Front every single year. And then, together, you and I will talk about the actual price. And I've prepared some great information for you. I'm excited to share it with you. Any questions so far? Make sense? Okay. And then number 4, we're going to talk about the close. And the close for me, and they'll say, yeah, that makes sense, and I'll say, great. And look, if all of that seems to make some level of success or sense, and if you feel good about it, because look, if you don't feel good about it, I know we're not going to sign contracts. If you don't feel good about it, we got a problem. It means we need to talk about more of what you need, more of what you want. What are you really expecting? What am I doing to sell your home? We need to talk more about the price and making sure that we really have not dialed that in and nailed it down. But at that point, I'm going to ask you to sign a contract. I'm going to ask you to take care of some paperwork because it's going to make some sense for us to work together. Fair enough? Fair enough. Okay? Tim, any thoughts to that? Make sense?
Makes sense. Sounds great.
Any thoughts, questions, comments? Some of you have heard this a number of times. If I'm missing something that like, hey, well, what about? What do you any thoughts to that?
I love this, not just for the listing presentation, for buyers too, because a lot of people, it's hard to get buyer brokers. For some agents, they come in and fake lost clients because I'm like, well, did you go through a game plan with them? Did you tell them everything that you're going to do from start to finish? Are you trying to build that relationship and, loyalty of trust back and forth?
Right.
And I'm going to do all these things for you, but I want to make sure that you're my client first.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really important to do that.
It is, big time. Yeah. I mean, if you look about finding a home, then price side of it, right, would be even the fact that you're going to do a CMA. Your strategy is you're going to do analysis to understand, making sure that you've got the best price for your home. And if all that makes sense, man, I'm going to really ask you that you give me your commitment as I'm giving you mine, that we're going to work together. And in order to acknowledge that, I need you to sign this document or sign this contract or sign this paperwork. Okay? Any thoughts, comments? Jason, are we on track?
We are on track.
Are we on it? Like Blue Bonnet?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, well we're pretty much out of time, but just very quickly. So if I got Michael here on the front row. So if I was going through this would be pretty similar. This would be what I would do. I'd walk in, knock, knock. We'll get into later, I hope in the week, we'll talk about shaking hands. We'll talk about body language. We'll talk about how we should stand, where we should sit at the table. We'll talk about how we defer all the pressure off of us. We'll talk about questions. We're going to talk about a lot of different things. There's no way we'll get it all in this week, but we'll just keep building and building and building on it. But I don't even know if we'll get all of it within 2.5 days, even on February 4th, 5th, and 6th, because there's just so much to it. But I do know that if you're committed to that growth, man, that's going to be a good place to be. So with that, so let's assume, not the door part, but we've just sat down. All right?
Sounds good.
Okay? And then it would just go very simple. I would just say, hey, Michael, thank you for allowing me to be here. You got a beautiful home. I just want to acknowledge you for giving me some time and some of your energy towards this, because I know you've been bombarded by so many different people. And based on that, I just want you to know that I promise you, right, that in the process of us going through this, as difficult or challenging as it may be, right, I realized there was the death of your mother and how challenging that was. I just want you to know that I promise to do everything I can to help you, but I also want you to know that I'm committed to helping you. I want you to know that really this business today, with thousands of homes still on the market and several thousand that never sell every single month, really it's about the commitment and the people who are working on your behalf. We're really talking about leadership. Michael, that's the key. Fair enough? Okay, so before that happens, and we're going to get into this, by the way, as to whether we do the intro or whether we defer before we go to the game plan. Number 3, by the way, tomorrow we're going to talk about questions that we should ask. And if I feel like I just talked like I did, I just can tell you, I felt it. Oh wait, you talked too much, you got to ask a question. And I would have asked the question, I would have asked a question, and I would have then come back to the game plan. Guys, I want you to have some level of versatility in regards to your presentation. I want you to be able to think through your presentation. I want you to be able to understand your presentation to where you own it. It's not just something that someone told you to regurgitate, so therefore you talked about it. So just know that. But then as we're sweeping through this quickly, then I would come up here and I would say, I'll pick on you now, John. We'll switch role plays. So hey, John, look, in regards to the fact of making sure this is a good experience, I've created a game plan. And I have really like what I consider a blueprint. In fact, I presume that you've already met with a few agents and you'd like to know probably where we're going to go this evening, correct?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So one, within that game plan, I want to know just a little bit more about what you need, kind of what, I would say what your wants are, your expectations. Because I know that if I don't know those things, it's almost next to impossible to effectively help you. Fair enough?
Oh, yeah, sure.
And you might say, oh, and we'll play games here later in the week, like, well, what are my commissions and how do we get back on track? Like really aggressive stuff that I want you guys to do back and forth with me, and we'll see how we work through those. And it almost never happens that aggressively at an appointment. But boy, if you can do it in here, everything else is going to be great. Okay? Hey, Aaron, how are you? Good to see you. All right. Okay, so needs, wants, expectations. And then as we get to understand that, I want to share with you what I'm going to do to sell the home. So I want to talk about my plan of action. I want to talk about what I consider to be some of the most important strategies and tools in getting a home sold in today's market. And then number 3 is we're going to talk a little bit about the price of the home, of course. But before we get into that, I want to share with you a little bit about the market conditions within your neighborhood, within the state, and really that you have a perspective as to what's going on from the standpoint of real estate. And the second component of that is we're going to talk about a strategy for pricing. Across the Wasatch Front, we sell over 5,000 homes a year. In fact, in the last decade, we've sold over, just by the way, this is true by the way, John, you'll appreciate this because you've been here the whole time. We have sold, since Everest was created, we have sold over 40,000 properties in the last decade. So when you start looking at like the impact of what it takes to get a home sold, I'm excited to share those tools and strategies with you. And then the third is we're going to talk, oh gosh, I went back to plan of action. And then we're going to talk about that strategy, right, of how do we price that home because we've sold so many homes. And then third, of course, we're going to talk about the market analysis, really the pricing on that home. But together we'll choose a price, right?
Well, yeah, that's the whole reason I came over. What is my home?
We can roll. Let's not do that right now, just because of time. But you know what I would do. Well, you've been around.
Yeah.
I would just say, you know what, John, that is an outstanding question. What is your home worth? In fact, what I'd like to do is I'd like to table 2 things, not just the fact of what your home's worth, but also what I'm going to charge you to get this job done. Look, I've realized that if you aren't convinced I can sell the home, if you aren't convinced I'm the right agent for the home, then the reality is it doesn't matter what price, it doesn't matter what I charge you, none of that matters. So if we could table that to the end of my presentation, would that be okay with your permission?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. So look, we're just recapping, I want to know your needs, wants, expectations. I'm going to share with you what we're going to do to get the home sold. We're going to talk about the price in regards to market conditions, the strategy, and of course the actual price of your home. And at that point, if you feel good, I'm going to ask you to take care of some paperwork and put me to work for you. Fair enough?
Yeah, if you can give me what I want, I'm sure.
Great. Well, we're going to ask, so let's talk about that. And if you did that, I would say that just so you know, we'll get into this tomorrow, but my first official question is always, ultimately, what are you trying to accomplish in the sale of your home? Now you may say, well, don't you know that from the pre-qual? Yeah, I do. But also what I recognize is that if I don't get their emotion right and get them connected and committed to where they're going and why they're doing it, then the reality is that when I really do if I have to put any level of what we might call pressure or guidance or helping them navigate to the actual close, if I don't reestablish why they're moving, ultimately what they're wanting to accomplish, where they're heading, what summit they're trying to summit, if that makes sense, the sale of their home, it really becomes an ineffective conversation from that standpoint. So So ultimately, John, what are you trying to accomplish in the sale of your home? And then we're going to, but tomorrow we're going to get into questions, help me understand. We're going to do that, okay? Okay, so thoughts, Judy?
Well, by asking it again when you're in person, there's a completely different, not expectation. You're on the phone, they feel about you one way. They're trusting you a little bit because now you've got that rapport to get an appointment, you get in front of them. Now there's a different kind of a trust. You're already in business with them, so they say different things when you're actually sitting with them. So
Right.
it's good to always
Perfectly
ask that.
said. Well, and to add to that, and we'll wrap with this, but if like Dylan and Kenzie, right, were sitting in front of me or standing at the kitchen bar, the reality is if they were there, I may have only spoken to Dylan. We may have attempted to try to get a hold of Kenzie in the meantime, but if not, my statements of needs, wants, and expectations is, hey Dylan, you and I set up this point. I had a great conversation with you. I got really clear on what I believe you expect, what you need, and what you want, but I have not had the conversation to visit with you, Kenzie. And so I just want to make sure all three of us, because this is a team effort of getting your home sold. I want to make sure we're all three on the same page. So please forgive me, Dylan, if I'm asking some of the same questions, but I really want to know, Kenzie, what do you need? What do you want? What do you expect? And then I'll ask like a Kenzie, and I'll say, Dylan, are you guys same page on that? And it's really important that we're all on the same page, right? So to your point, one, reestablishing a different experience when you're in person. Maybe you only spoke to one of them. A lot of different reasons to reestablish. Look, the key to great leadership, bless you and bless you, right, is knowing what people want and helping them get it. Right? The key to your life. Right? I was listening today to Tony Robbins' The Edge. Man, he kept repeating his first little section of The Edge. Know what you want. Know where you're going. Know what you want. Know where you're going. If you're one of the few who knows where they're going, you'll get what you want. Well, if you don't know what you want, how can you even confront them? The key to great confrontation. Yes, love, like Sam always talks to you. I confront you because I love you. Just remember that, Kenzie. Okay? But if you don't know what they want and you confront someone, it is a really bad experience in almost all cases. Because then it becomes all about who wants? You. But the reality is they probably may want what you're talking about, but you have never re-identified what you want, what they want. So don't underestimate. We're going to get into the questions of this, but man, this is important. Right here, man, they will give you the whole presentation. They'll tell you what they want. What do you expect from me as your agent? What do you expect from the company? What do you expect me to do? What do you expect in regards to how I communicate with you? Tomorrow we'll talk about that. Okay? All right. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? All right, let's roll. Here we go. Thanks for being here. Michael, welcome. All right.
I succeed
because I got my goals. I'm an optimist. I like talking to new people. I know what's important to me. I remember people's names. I have a daily plan I follow. I am passionate